All right, hey everyone. So today we have a pull tutorial. So this one is going to be some classic movements just put into a very short combination. So we're going to do our Jamilla, which is also like an aerial cradle straddle. And then that's going to work on transitioning up and over into our apprentice, which then works on the coveted Superman trick. Okay, so what we're going to work on to start is coming over to the side you feel most comfortable to have your non-dominant hand below and your dominant one above. So what I want you to do is just make sure that you're warm, the wrists, forearms, and shoulders especially are warm, as well as the hips. So if you want to follow one of the warm-up videos or even some of the other conditioning ones, and then we're going to get into this one. Okay, so with this one, we're going to start by having the bottom hand down, so about hip height. With this one, I like to use pointer finger kind of pointing towards the ground and the elbow slightly inwards towards the hip. So then from there, your opposite hand will come across. So we're bracing from there, not too high with the top hand. By having it lower, it gives you more control and stability as you come into the pose and then to transition. So the main part of this one is to get that cradle position where the pull will come to your hip crease, bending into that bottom knee, and then of course tilting over to the second leg as well. So we come in from the center or from the side, pull it into the center between the thighs, and of course it's also touching the midriff, so it's also good to have that as some grip but open area to help with your grip. Okay, so a couple times you're going to work on coming into that cradle, and then we're going to think about just the top leg is going to lift up to touch the pole. So we're working to get that ankle to then come up and hook the pole. So I'm going to face the back, and then I'll show it from here. So this bottom arm comes down. I like to think of it like, not necessarily like you're trying to really push into your hip, but it does give more support if your elbow is not pointing back, it's pointing more inwards, because then you can stabilize and use your back more as well. And notice how you do have to bend the knee a little bit to hook the ankle at the top of the pole. But if your top hand is too high, it would be really more difficult to get that hook. So you want to make sure that your bottom hand is in a good range or a good spot that you can get to that hook. Okay, so that's step number one. Work on the cradle, really work on drawing your chest and thighs close together, pulling using the biceps of the arms to hold. Hold, and then up. From there, we hook that ankle. Top hand comes around, and then as the top leg slides down into your knee. Now we're in our apprentice position, which you can always hold for a moment there. Now from here, so we have top hand, bottom hand, and the legs in between. This top leg is going to start to release. So you're going to step that bottom foot down, release the top leg, turn and reach. I'm doing this with my feet on the floor to show that as always as an option. You don't need to do this one fully with your feet off the floor at the beginning, but to understand what needs to happen in order to twist the body is a really good piece of it as well. Okay? So when you come into it, think top ankle has to hook so that the top hand can change positions, bend the top knee. Now most of the weight is going to shift into the bottom hip and the bottom hand to then work on the twisting of the hips towards the floor. Okay, so I'll do it a few times and also show it from the opposite side as well. Bend, apprentice, then from here, this leg can tap down, push, open, squeeze the thighs, reach. So because I'm putting the foot on the floor with the bottom leg, that's where most of the pressure is for a moment, but it would eventually just sit with that left hip instead of the foot on the floor. Great, so I'm going to show it from this side or this direction as well. So when you lift that leg and reach, when you lift the top leg to twist the body for the last pose of Superman, that the mobility of that is interesting, and so like the feeling of it is different. So you do want to think that you have to open the leg, but it's the action of kind of pulling that right hip forward as you start to rotate that knee down and push the toes away and the upper body forward. This one is really about a lot of counterbalancing and like counter reaching, lengthening as much as you can. Okay? So to show it now, if you need the other orientation again, I'll show it on this side. And once you get pretty familiar with doing that like option of putting the feet on the ground, you can eventually like hold that pose and lift the feet off. But what happens is, because your body ends up sort of more at an angle, sometimes lifting the feet from there might be more challenging, but it's just like getting that repetition of like moving the hips properly, and then you can start to build it up. Okay, so now I'll show that part of it. So when we're building it up into full Superman, so we're staying off of the floor. So that leg is going to lift. I push into that bottom hand, really squeezing into that bottom thigh, turn, squeeze the legs together and reach. So as I squeeze the legs together and reach away, the bottom hand, you really do kind of push off the bottom hand to give your upper body that extra little boost as the legs reach to the opposite side. So a lot of reaching. I honestly just suggest working on your Superman position like on the floor as well. Even if, you know, it's not the same as all the grips on the pole, it really still reinforces the fact that like the longer you can think of being, the more that the hips drop, the glutes engage, the back of the body is really engaged for that, then the better that this one is going to feel, and the less pinchy overall, because it is pretty pinchy, of course, in your thighs. So, all right, let's do it one more time. All right. This is one of the more foundational transitions into Superman. There are a few different other ones, but it really does reinforce a lot of hip mobility, hip rotation, and just like, right, moving a little bit closer towards the bottom of the pole. A lot of the other ones either come from an invert or do have a few more steps that require a little bit more height. So that's why this one is definitely step number one, and then eventually, right, building on in other transitions so that you feel more comfortable as well. All right, so good work, everyone. Make sure to do a little cool down or continue your practice before and then coming into some stretches. So very, very much excited for you as you continue here. Give me some feedback or any requests that you have, and I'll be sure to take a look. See you.